The Dolphins are off to the franchise's best start since 2003, which turned out to be a 10-6 season for South Florida's NFL franchise. The team's 37-0 shutout win over San Diego puts them at 5-3 at the midseason point. The Dolphins are off to a 1-0 start in the critical November games, which separates the contenders from the pretenders in the NFL. Sunday's road game against the 6-2 Lions can help us all determine where the playoffs are a realistic possibility for these fans.
What do you think?
Right now?
Playoffs?
It's realistic. It is realistic.
So you're saying playoffs are a possibility for these Dolphins?
Of course I'm saying that.
All right.
It's a possibility until they're eliminated. I'm CBS 12's Matt Lincoln. He's Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly. You are excited Dolphins fans floating on Cloud 9. Welcome to Studio B inside the palatial Sun Sentinel complex.
We're changing things up a little bit. The man has decided that he didn't like, can't talk about the man when the man's here.
I always expect the man to be wearing a suit. Why is the man not wearing a suit? Okay.
He's a different man.
All right. So, Omar, honestly, one of the best all-around performances in recent history, for the Dolphins, when you look back at some of the big wins. Is this euphoria that Dolphins fans are feeling worth it? Is it true? Is it kind of fool's gold?
I've said all season, and you've been a witness to this. This is a good Dolphins team. Now, quarterback play,
okay.
Coaching, but they've got a good running game. They've got a very dominant defense that I think has the potential to be elite, and I'm not just talking about elite top 5 in the NFL. I think probably one of the best Dolphins defenses in the history of the franchise. They've got so many components to it that make them good, and you're seeing them start to take that next level with Rashad Jones back, with Jimmy Wilson playing the nickel, with Cole Misi healthy. Mm-hmm. You know what? I really think that they are a top 5 team in this defense in the NFL, and they will continue to progress. Now the question is, can they stay consistent? Right. Can they consistently show you that they can play like this? Because here's the thing about San Diego victory. That wasn't a slouch of a team that they beat. Right. If they had beaten Oakland or Jacksonville 37-0, we would have said, that's pretty good. This is a playoff team. And in fact, the playoff team that stole Miami's wildcard seed last year. So I think the Dolphins had a lot going for them in terms of playing for Joe Philbin, who lost his father, who's attending the funeral of his father today. Playing for each other because they really do believe that they're a good team and that they can collectively be a good team. And it really was, I think that was the moment where you got the aha. Yeah. We are good.
Right. And I think that you saw almost the perfect scenario of the way that the game goes. Happens. That's perfect scenario for the Dolphins. They get up early. They get to defensive line gets to pin their ears back and just roll, and then the defensive backs who are strong, they get to jump those routes.
You know what?
Try to pick those passes.
I had a conversation that was actually caught on camera, a candid conversation. I always have it with Mike Wallace after games in the locker room. I love talking to Mike Wallace because he's real. He breaks it down real, and he talks real. And it was actually caught on video, and we posted on the Sun Sentinel site. And it was a genuine, candid conversation. And Mike's gist of the conversation was, if we as the offense do our job, we know what we have as a defense. If we give them a lead early, the game's over.
Right.
And just like you said, you brought that to mind, because if they play like that, where they get a 10-point lead early in the first half of the game, more than likely, unless you're facing a Peyton Manning, game's over.
Game is over. It certainly felt like that. We're going to take your questions all on Twitter. All you have to do is ask them using the hashtag XOMAR. You can also send us a video question. We're looking for some challenges like usual. We've got our referee here prepared. Yeah, okay.
Better whistle today. Better whistle. Better whistle.
Can we not do it right in the ear?
It was pretty loud.
Well, he's going to issue challenges for us on anything that is said in today's show that you disagree with, so make sure you send them to us.
If you want a challenge, put challenge in the tweet.
Right.
And use the X and Omar hashtag. That's how we find everything. The X and Omar hashtag on Twitter.
We're also going to play Omar's favorite game, True or False, answering those tough Dolphins questions with the easiest answer possible. Let's get right to some questions. Our first one comes from at Jersquall. Last year it was the O-line. Do the Dolphins have any major issues at any position this year?
You know what? I think they've got some special teams issues that they still need to address. Primarily, Caleb Sturgis. He's made 16 of 20 kicks. That's not bad, but it's not good. Brandon Fields, who is a Pro Bowl punter, coming off a Pro Bowl year, is having his worst career year. That's something that you need to address. It isn't all Brandon Fields. I think a lot of it is his protection unit. And that protection unit took a hit this week with the loss of Michael Thomas. Most Dolphin fans, or the average Dolphin fans as I call them, have no idea who Michael Thomas is. He is by far your best special teams player. He's the guy that's running on the field, making all the tackles on special teams, and he's the PP on punt coverage, which means he's the punt protector. He's the last guy, line of defense. And so now they signed Jordan Kovacs, who they claimed off the Eagles practice squad. He's going to be added to the team, sort of try to fill that role. But Jordan Kovacs is a Michael Thomas. And it's like losing your quarterback on offense. It's not going to be easy.
You said this was a good team now. This was a good team last year. Now they're...
Talent-wise, they are a good team.
Okay.
Their record says they are a good team. Will they be a 10-win team contending for the playoffs? I don't know. That all, to me, comes down to how good can Ryan Tannehill be? How good can this coaching staff be?
Well, this is the other thing that's bothersome, is that we've been talking about 10 wins. That's what it's going to take, 10 wins to get to the playoffs.
Well, really 9. 9 is my bar, but 10 is what it's going to take to the playoffs.
Because here's the problem. There are 9 teams in the AFC right now with a 5-3 record or better. 9.
Wow.
Only 6 of them are going to make the playoffs, obviously. So going 5-3 on the second half of the season is not necessarily going to guarantee you a playoff spot. 10 wins might not do it.
See, here's the thing that I think a lot of the AFC North teams are going to knock themselves out. I think some of the AFC West teams, Kansas City, San Diego, are going to knock themselves out. It's important that you have the tiebreaker over the San Diego. Now, you don't have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs. So if you're a Dolphin fan, you're rooting against the Chiefs each week. You're rooting for things to happen bad for them. And then, to me, it always comes down to taking care of your business, winning your AFC games, winning your AFC East games. You got to sweep the Jets. You got to take Buffalo on that Thursday night game next week.
It's huge.
Huge matchup.
Huge.
I said last week I said San Diego is the biggest game of the season, and I do believe San Diego is the biggest game of the season. However, the worst matchup for this Dolphins team, not the Patriots, not the Ravens, it is the Buffalo Bills, and they've won 3 straight.
Well, and if you want to be a good team, if you want to make it to the playoffs, yes, there are huge games along the way, but games keep on getting bigger as the season goes along. So
are you prepared to handle the pressure?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Am I? I think so. I mean,
because X's and Omar gets better each and every week.
All right, okay. Ryan Tannehill has really started to turn that corner. We've seen it since Joe Philbin wouldn't officially name him the starter heading into that London game against the Raiders.
You're not hosting the show with me, but you're hosting the show with me, so you know.
So, what do you feel like has been this change? Has it been because of Dan Marino? You know, we've started breaking that story. We started talking about that last week, that Marino working with Tannehill and the quarterbacks. Has that really been a huge difference?
There are 2 things that really started at the antithesis that were just hard for me, of Tannehill's turnaround, which began at the Oakland game. Dan Marino began working with him heading into the Oakland game, and Joe Philbin wouldn't anoint him as his precious, as Channing Crowder, QAM host, calls him. They have baby Tannehill his entire career. At Oakland, they said, we're not babying you anymore. You either got it or you don't, and it's time, we need to figure that out because we can move on. And really, he started running more. They started being more aggressive with him. And in last week's game against San Diego, they started being aggressive. He started being aggressive in the passing game. And I think that that's what's really missing from his game. He's never going to be good at the deep ball. But he should be throwing more 20-yard passes. And you saw that last week against San Diego. However, I will caution this to all the people I call the Patience Brigade. And you know who you are. Tannehill plays his best in three times. When he's facing a 3-4 defense, great against 3-4 defense. When he's facing a team that plays mostly zone coverage, which is what San Diego does, and when he's facing a team that can't pressure him. What was San Diego? 3-4 zone, can't pressure. He seemed real comfortable in that pocket.
Yeah, he did.
How many games the rest of the way this season are you going to get like that? Probably the Jets game is it.
Well, there was a national pundit who I on a national radio show said that he believes Ryan Tannehill's the most athletic quarterback in the NFL.
The numbers back it up.
Yeah.
I mean, right now he's averaging 7.9 yards per carry. He is the highest rusher in the NFL for players who have carried the ball 30 or more times. He has done things that only Steve Young and Michael Vick have done in the NFL in terms of how many 20-plus yard runs he's produced in the last 4 games. The question is, why did it take you so long to figure out the athletic quarterback that you drafted is an athlete and can actually run and extend plays? And I've said for 3 years on this show, he needs to run the ball more because it helps him cheat. And it allows him to get first downs, cheat big plays. Every game, he's giving you a 20-yard gain. Mm-hmm. That is a huge thing. You know, the biggest difference in the NFL, I learned this from Brian Billick last week, is teams that can give you chunk yardage and teams that protect the ball and produce turnovers. Right now, for one game, the Dolphins gave you chunk yardage, they protected the ball, and they produced turnovers.
It's all about making plays and not letting other teams make the big plays. That's
absolutely
what it's all about. All right, so huge days for Tannehill, 100-plus passer rating in the last 3 of the last 5 games. He's been the second best quarterback in the NFL, behind only Ben Roethlisberger over that time.
Who would have thought?
Certainly not you.
Not me.
Here's a video question from George.
So hey Omar, my name is George Sanchez, and my question is why Tannehill is such a roller coaster? Why he's so up and down all the time, right?
Okay, so why such a roller coaster for Tannehill?
He's an inconsistent quarterback. That's just his nature. He was inconsistent at Texas A&M. I think that a good coach is going to be able to break him out of that habit. It really depends on the defense that he faces. But, if you really think about who Ryan Tannehill is after 40 starts, which San Diego was his 40th start, he's an inconsistent quarterback who can't deliver the big play in terms of the deep pass, and he struggles with his pocket presence. So if you're a defense that can take away the intermediate game, not every team can do that, especially if you don't have good linebackers. If you're a team that can pressure without blitzing, which means just rushing 4 like the Lions and the Bills do, the next 2 opponents, he's going to have bigger issues. And ultimately, he's going to have to be able to make big plays. The games that he makes big plays, Dolphins win. Mm-hmm. He looks great. The days that he doesn't make big plays or struggles with sacks, Dolphins look bad. Ryan Tannehill struggles. And that's really the ebbs and flows of his career. As I said earlier in this show, in this season, I think Alex Smith is probably the most comparable quarterback, and that is your hope for who he can become in the future.
But he's still writing that story. He's still got the rest of this season to write, how we're all going to look back on.
From my standpoint, I think I was wrong in the fact that I wouldn't give him 8 games in this offense.
Yeah.
I felt after the Green Bay game, I had seen enough to see inconsistent, can't deliver big plays. Now he's giving you turnovers.
Yeah.
I'm done. And realistically, what he's showing you now is the quarterback that I saw in the exhibition season, that I saw in training camp. Protect the ball. That's the number one priority. Put the ball in position for your playmakers to make plays. And he did that with Rashard Matthews. He did that with Charles Clay. He did that with Mike Wallace on certain plays. He's done it with Jarvis Landry, who we talked about last week, is a huge playmaker. Now the key is, if you can consistently run the ball and play great defense and your special teams can be respectable, that can be a winning formula for 9 and 10 wins.
All right, let's take our next question. It comes from @Drawer711, who wants to know, what's the best way to combat the 4-man rush of Detroit and Buffalo? So you said he loves going against the 3-4, not as much the 4-3. Does Tannehill have issues this weekend?
Yes. He's going to have issues for the next 2, if not 3 weeks, because the Broncos, they are a 3-4 team, but they do have consistently can get pressure with just 4. Losing Nick Fairley hurts Detroit, and they don't have a dynamic edge rushers, but their interior pressure with Ndamukong Suh and Fairley is a force that has allowed them to really excel in terms of stopping the run. I believe they're under 4 yards per carry in what they're allowing to opponents. Opponents are, I think, 32% third down completion percentage. Opposing quarterbacks have like a 76 quarterback rating against them. But their defense, there's nothing really special about that.
Right.
Their table is set by what the defensive line is doing. And Mike Pouncey's going to have the huge matchup this week in terms of can he and Samson Tatelli, because I don't think Ndamukong Suh is a player that can be contained by one guy. Can a Pro Bowl Mike Pouncey and Samson Tatelli contain Ndamukong Suh? And then can Brandon Albert hold his own against Ansah? And if you can do that, you can manage the game. But really, in terms of how to beat the four-man press, you're going to have to throw a lot of screens, a lot of sweeps, a lot of checkdowns, a lot of flare-outs to the running backs. And to me, that's really going to be the key of this game. Can the running backs contribute 10 plays, 10 catches? This week, Lamar Miller is battling a shoulder injury. He hurt his left shoulder, which is an injury that he's had since his college days. And there's going to be some major concerns about whether or not he plays in this game on Sunday.
That's bad news.
Huge news.
That is bad news.
Considering he's on pace to run for 1,000 and basically 60 yards with 12 touchdowns this season on just 13 carries per game. If you don't play with him, Daniel Thomas is going to have to take a larger role. Damian Williams is going to have to take a larger role. And more than likely, you're going to have to promote one of those young rookie, not young rookie, but young running backs, LaMichael James and Orleans Darkwa. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this
Miller,
week.
one of the top 10 running backs in the entire NFL so far this season, and it would be a huge loss.
He's one of those guys where I think that he should be touching the ball more as opposed to less. Unfortunately, coming out of University of Miami, shoulder issues was a problem and durability was a problem. This is it happens with backs. That's why teams rely on two backs most of the season.
All right, Omar, time to play. Oh, no. Oh.
Time out.
Okay.
So, Omar, you just said, answering the video question, that Tannehill is having trouble with his pocket presence. So the real Manema says, wow, how can you say that? Mike Maycock knows his football, and for him to make a segment for Tannehill improving in his pocket shows that you, Omar, actually have an issue with Tannehill.
Of course I do. No, I have an issue with mediocre quarterback play. As I said earlier in the show, San Diego has no pass rush.
Right.
There is no way that and I watched that video breakup Mike Mayock did. And I am a huge Mike Mayock fan. Huge. He knows his stuff. But he's looking at one game of Ryan Tannehill with no pass rush.
Right.
How often is Ryan Tannehill going to face an opponent the rest of the way this season that doesn't have a pass rush?
That's true. That doesn't,
and I'm sorry, but 1 out of 40 games is not a huge sample size to say that somebody has great pocket presence. A lot of those 58 sacks last season, I believe 13 of them were on Ryan Tannehill. And he will admit that. He's got to get better as a pocket quarterback.
We've been talking about the Chargers being a good team, but really they have been good
this
year
offense.
because of their offense and because of Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Because Phillip Rivers was playing at one of the highest levels of his career, and
Until he reached the Dolphins.
And the Dolphins' defensive line shook him off his game. All right, now I think we can finally play the game Omar can't get enough of. Let's do true or false. You ask the question, we answer it, and provide a little insight. Well, he provides a little insight. All right, let's go to.
You can too.
I have no insight to give. Kenny Walker. We have a true or false from Kenny Walker. He asks. Let's see. Where did it go?
The Dolphins will win the AFC East. I really have a hard time saying that the Dolphins will win the AFC East. Who didn't just watch that beatdown that the Patriots put on Denver Broncos, who most people would arguably say was the best team in the NFL?
Right.
Until they matched up with the Patriots. I can't see it. I mean, the Patriots are still the Patriots. What's impressive is that they've lost so many players to injuries, but have still made some trades, and Tim Wright is playing better, and their wide receivers are playing better. Gronk is getting healthy. I mean, the Patriots team that the Dolphins faced in the season opener will not be the same Patriots team that they faced later on this year in December up in Foxborough. And that's got to be a concern for Dolphin fans. Now, you don't have to sweep the Patriots in order to win the AFC East. To me, I think the Patriots are going to be at 11 wins, and you've got to match that.
Yeah, I mean, they're True or false, Patriots are the best team in the NFL right now? Because a lot of people are saying that after this victory over the Broncos.
I'm not giving it to them. I give the best team in the NFL to the team that has the best record, and that's the Arizona Cardinals.
All right.
I think Bruce Arians is the best head coach in the NFL. If I had to pick one guy that I would want to play for outside of Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan, everybody knows I have a love affair with Rex Ryan. He's just got that personality that vibes well with me. It would be Bruce Arians.
Too bad it doesn't motivate his players to play better, right?
I think you know what? What's going on with the Jets? I feel sorry for them just from the standpoint. They made some bad moves in free agency. They don't have a cornerback. They banked on Demetri Patterson to be their guy. It just didn't happen. And you just gotta you gotta play with what you got. And unfortunately, Rex doesn't have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. And that alone leads to them being 1-7. Because it's a disaster. It's a train wreck. It's a dumpster fire.
But everybody was expecting Rex's team to eventually struggle, whether it be last year or this year. The Jets are just waiting to fire him. And that's what's going to happen. But I think Rex is a dynamic coach, and I think he will resurface in the NFL somewhere and be a pretty good coach once he's got a good quarterback. And right now, you don't have that. You don't have that in New York.
All right. Next question comes from @JFalzoid. True or false, Philip Wheeler and Danielle Ellerbe are gone after the season?
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
From a financial standpoint, I think both are on the hook for $15 million of a base salary. I mean, and if you cut them, you get a little bit of a relief. Is Danielle Ellerbe an $8 million a year player? Have you missed him on the field right now?
Not at all. Their linebacking crew's better this year than it was last year.
Philip Wheeler sparingly plays now, and in his role, which I'm comfortable with him being in his role, which does not mean that he's covering tight ends.
Right.
He's okay, but he's not worth what his salary is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you purge that. There are a couple other purges that you're probably going to get rid of Brandon Gibson. What people don't realize is that this team is financially cap-strapped next year going into the offseason, unless the cap drastically jumps up another $10 million, which some people are projecting that it will. But they're going to be cutting ties with a lot of players, and then a lot of the free agents, Jared Odrick, Charles Clay, are going to be struggles to re-sign.
Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit about it last show about Blanky. May be an interesting decision.
You know what's interesting about Blanky, who, for those who don't know, Brian Hartline's contract, is that his contract's basically a series of 1 year, $6 million deals. So ultimately, if you decide this year or next year he's not worth $6 million, it's easy to part ways with him. I just don't know. I think that they need a better split end. I think they need better play from their split ends. I have seen too much from Brian Hartline to say that he can't do what they need him to do. I just have.
Okay.
I know he's in a slump right now, and I know he's the number 4 option on the offense, and justifiably so, because Jarvis Landry, to me, would be the number one weapon on this offense. Mike Wallace would be the secondary weapon on this offense for me. I would have him running big. Charles Clay would be
number 3.
Clay would be number 3. Then I go to Lamar Miller.
Okay.
Then I go to Brian Hartline. Sometimes you just got to know your role.
That's $6 million for number 5.
Hey.
All right. @Giovanni wants to know, true or false, Ryan Tannehill will be healthy for all 16 games this season.
Can
we project really injuries?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely, you can. Yes, you can. The Dolphins lose. I did a study, and the Dolphins lose a player every 3 games.
Okay.
Player for the season every 3 games. They just lost Michael Thomas, so that means that's the average out. So for the next 2 games, you'll probably be safe, but then you'll lose another one.
Okay.
This week, somebody brought up the point, and Ndamukong Suh on these QB read options. And Ndamukong Suh is a very abusive quarterback. He likes to punish people.
Right.
And I think if Tannehill runs and is out the pocket, the Lions, knowing their tendencies, knowing who they are, their mentality, this is a battle of 2 defenses who want to be the number 1 defense in the NFL. The Dolphins are taking a ton of pride in going in there and smacking around Matt Stafford because they want that top spot.
Yeah.
And the Lions own it. You don't think that the Lions are looking at the Dolphins and saying the same thing? That we want that top spot. And if we beat up this quarterback, we're going to get it. So I have a hard time believing that Ryan Tannehill is going to play all 16 games in the NFL season. Think about it from this standpoint. He's gone 2 years where a quarterback has stayed healthy for entire 2 years. Can he really do a third?
I mean,
Will
I think
he
that
not
shows
miss
that
a
he's
game for the
durable.
third?
That's the thing, is he's shown that he's durable. He's running all this time through and avoiding the big hits. He's smart
All
out
it
there.
takes
He's
is
doing
one.
a great job.
All it takes is one. Think about it. All it takes is one. Look at
I
Tony
don't
Romo.
think, I don't think guys are due for injuries. I don't think that's the way it works.
Look at Tony Romo. All it took was one hit.
Okay.
And look at Nick Foles. All it took was one hit.
All right. Well, I mean, Mike Wallace has been healthy his entire time here, so now you're going to say he's due for an injury?
He actually hasn't been healthy his entire time here. He's got a foot issue right now.
But he's playing. I mean, he's playing. He's in the game.
He's playing. That doesn't mean he's healthy.
Okay.
And Ryan Tannehill has had knee issues throughout, going back to last season. But in my mind, just looking at him and looking at his build, he's built like a wide receiver. If he continues to take the hits that he's taking, let's say 10 a game. You run 6 times a game. You might get pressured, hit another 5. So let's just say average it out to 10 times a game. In my mind, there is no way that he's going to stay healthy for an entire 16-game schedule for 3 straight seasons.
Okay. I mean, sure. I guess you can project that if you want.
I'm a numbers guy. I do those kind of projections, man.
All right. Let's take our next true and false. At JLong13 has a good one. Dallas Thomas has done enough to unseat Darren College when he's healthy again as a starting guard.
False.
I don't think that's...
Yeah,
have we
listen.
really seen that enough?
No, he's played well when he's been in there. There are few snaps in the San Diego game where he was an issue. But keep in mind, he was going against Corey Legit, who I think is a top 10 defensive tackle in the NFL. Dallas Thomas is good enough to get the job done. He is probably a little bit better than John Jerry because he gives you more in run blocking. Not as much in pass blocking, but he gives you more in run blocking. Problem is, Darren College to me is a top
He was great.
15 outside of Jacksonville game.
Yeah, well.
Migraines, sinus issues, then he had a back problem. It's a mystery game to figure out what exactly was his issue, what he was going through. He slipped up a couple times and said he got knocked out. We don't know. The dirty word in the NFL is concussions, and nobody ever likes to use it because it means you got to go through a tremendously ridiculous protocol to get back on the field. But College says he missed last week's game because of a back issue. Not his migraines, sinus, concussions, whatever. Yeah, basically.
He's just coming up with things now, I think.
But he's on the practice field. He's practicing. He's a starter. He's going to be there. This is going to be the best line that the Dolphins can present, and they'll need it because this is the best defensive line that they will face outside of the Bills.
Okay, another true and false. At Lloyd Heilbrunn asks, true or false, adding Rashad Jones and Koamisi turned the defense from very good to an elite defense? Rashad Jones has been all over the field, making plays in the backfield, making plays at the line of scrimmage, covering Antonio Gates, something you said he could not do.
That is true. I am retracting some statements that I said about Rashad Jones previously on this show. I thought he struggled in coverage. Antonio Gates was hurt, and he's old and fat.
Okay.
But Rashad Jones got the job done.
Touchdowns against other teams.
He scored 9 touchdowns this season. Rashad Jones got the job done. He only covered him about 5 times one-on-one, but which is probably the strength of this defense is it's not very predictable. But Rashad Jones wore the sombrero, as we call it. He put the sombrero on, and he manned up, and he played a great defense. And honestly, I'm not a huge Rashad Jones fan because I just don't like tremendously arrogant players. I don't like you to tell me that you're the best safety in the league. Like, just go out there and play well. But in fairness to Rashad, he is playing like a top 5 safety in the NFL right now. I think the suspension has motivated him. Maturity has always been an issue with him. I'm seeing a different maturity from Rashad Jones. I'm seeing a different growth from him. And I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing from him. Now, on the flip side of that question, which is true, the answer is true. This Dolphins defense has gotten to another level when Koamisi's been on the field. That ankle injury has lasted forever. It's still there. It's still lingering. All it takes is one bad step for Koamisi to suffer a setback. But when he's on the field, he's giving you 6 tackles a game. He's suffocating the run. He's hitting his gap. He's containing his man. He's taking the fullback out the game. He's doing decent coverage. And then, because of the improved coverage of these linebackers, because last year's linebackers couldn't cover.
And those ones that are still around still can.
Because of the improved coverage of these linebackers, Rashad Jones is allowed to get back into his 2012 role of freelancing in the game, going into situations and plays, reading the defense, and making a play. Rashad is a playmaker. Problem is, when he when he has a coverage responsibility, he's not that great. But if you allow him to freelance and roam, he's very good. And the Dolphins, because of Louis Delmas being back there as a free safety, because of Rashad's interchangeable roles, because of his instincts, he's really beginning to thrive. And I would really say he's probably a top 5 safety in the NFL right now. Imagine that. I said it. It came from Omar Kelly. Rashad Jones is a top 5 safety in the NFL right now.
Don't tell him, but Omar said that. It's only going to blow his head up even more. Really interesting game coming up this weekend. The Detroit Lions, one of the NFL's best defenses, a forceful front line. They also are one of the NFL's top-rated defenses heading into Sunday's game. What's the biggest challenge about playing Detroit? Is it the defense, or is it Matthew Stafford, Calvin Johnson, and the issues the offense poses?
I would say, here's the thing about the defense. They're all front line.
Right.
It's just the front line. The linebackers and the cornerbacks eat off what the front line makes for them. And realistically, that front line is one person, Ndamukong Suh.
Right.
I think the Dolphins have enough in Mike Pouncey. Even if Mike Pouncey allows a sack or two, that's 2 plays in 50. Kills 2 drives in 50. Just do a respectable job. To me, the biggest challenge is Matt Stafford, who I watched his film, and Matt Stafford is the type of quarterback that I like from this standpoint. He's aggressive.
Yeah,
he's aggressive. He's not looking just to get you a first down. He's not looking to try to check down the ball. He's either going swinging for a triple, home run, or he's checking it down. I like quarterbacks that don't always swing for doubles, and that's who Matt Stafford is. The question is, and he's a little bit athletic. He's a little bit more athletic than Phillip Rivers, which kind of gives me some trouble. In terms of his weaponry, Golden Tate's playing well, 800 yards. Calvin Johnson will likely be back this week. He's well rested on that ankle injury. Now the question is, will he be 100%? And I highly doubt that. And then Reggie Bush is coming back from a knee injury. Now, Reggie Bush is averaging 3.1 yards per carry, or actually the Lions are averaging 3.1 yards per carry. So I don't really worry about the run game that much.
Not at all.
What I worry about is check down passes. What I worry about is flare passes out the backfield. What I worry about is wide receiver screens, if Reggie Bush is who I think he is. And those have given Dolphins trouble.
But Stafford is a guy who will, because he is aggressive, chuck it around a little bit. Leads to a lot of interceptions. And I'm sure Brent Grimes, Cortland Finnegan, those guys are looking at the tape, looking at this as an opportunity to make more big plays like they have in the past couple weeks.
And for those who don't know, Brent Grimes was named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week this week for his 2 interception performance against San Diego Chargers. And that is the first time in a while the Dolphins have had back-to-back 2 AFC Defensive Players of the Week. Louis Delmas was named the Player of the Week last week for his pick-6 interception against Jacksonville, and then he had a fumble recovery. This Dolphins secondary is playing great. Now, they feed off what the defensive line does. So you're strong in the front and you're strong in the back. What you need as a Dolphins team is you need that middle to play strong.
Well, it's just kind of like the Lions. You have the Lions very strong up front.
They're not
just
very strong
kind of mediocre in the back, but it makes them look very good in the back because they're so good in the front. Dolphins very good in the front, good in the back, even maybe very good in the back. Now they are become excellent in the back because of how good that front is.
Definitely.
All right,
another challenge.
Oh, this is.
He's gotten better at throwing the flag, though.
How many do you get a game? 2, right? This is the last one?
Okay, well, this time we have 2 challenges.
Oh.
So your take on quarterbacks and injuries has brought 2 challenges to play.
Okay.
So Bill J says, wouldn't all the ridiculous amounts of sacks without injury be a sign that Tannehill isn't very injury prone?
How many times did he get hit last year? That's a great point.
He got hit last year about 70 times a game.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. All it takes is 1 hit. All it takes is 1 good hit.
That is very true. Very true.
Next challenge.
And Aaron Roberts says, challenge. Brett Favre isn't a big guy. He played for countless numbers of games without injuries as well.
He's also the most durable football player. So what I hate is when Twitter Nation brings exceptions to the table. Like, Brett Favre's the most durable player in the NFL history. Like,
Why? How do you know that Ryan Tannehill's not?
look at the amount of quarterbacks that have suffered injuries this season. I mean, you lose probably, maybe, I'm guessing here, you lose probably 6 or 7 starting quarterbacks in the NFL to injuries. Geno Smith is gone. Now, he wouldn't be starting anyway, naturally, because Michael Vick is probably a little bit better. Geno Smith, Nick Foles, Tony Romo. That's in week 8, and I'm sure I'm missing some. Guys, if you think that your quarterback's going to play, what's 16 times 3? I'm not good at math.
That is, what is it? 48? 48.
Are we sure? Okay, all right.
Wait a minute.
If you think your starting quarterback is going to play 48 straight games in the NFL, you're insane. It just doesn't happen that
I'm
often.
insane. It does happen more often.
It happens.
Guys lose their jobs more from stinking rather than by injury. So you can't look at the quarterbacks and say, 48 starts in a row. That doesn't happen that often because a lot of guys lose their jobs because they're not very good.
Think about this. Lamar Miller, he gets tackled on a 1-yard run. Shoulders out. You don't think Tannehill runs and gets tackled and hits his shoulder, his throwing shoulder? Come on, people.
We're not saying it can't happen.
The numbers aren't
We're
in your
saying it's
favor.
not likely.
The numbers aren't in your favor.
Let's move on. At Josh Padfield wants to know, do you go aggressive versus Matt Stafford and risk the big play to receivers to force mistakes?
Sure, why not?
You combat aggressive with aggressive, right?
You know what? I would play him with the same blueprint that you beat Jay Cutler with. He is a quarterback that's going to give it up. He's a quarterback that's going to make bowl throws, and he's going to be throwing off the wrong foot because of that pressure.
Doing these things.
Doing one of these things. Yeah, I like that move.
Yeah, that's what he does. It
looks like a little dance move right
right.
there. I would be aggressive with him just from the standpoint, how often can Calvin Johnson beat you? Yes, the jump ball is going to kill you. And yes, you got small cornerbacks, but they play with great technique. And if that ball is a little bit off, the chances of it being Brent Grimes or Cortland Finnegan's is just as good as it is being somebody else other than Calvin Johnson's.
That's true. Our next question comes from at Gasface6. Gasface. Who wants to know? He wants to know, does Deion Jordan make his biggest impact against Denver and New England covering the tight end one-on-one?
Not just Denver and New England, but Detroit. Eric Ebron is on that team. Pettigrew is on that team. They've got 4 good tight ends in Detroit. But I watched the game because Chris McCain was hurt. You know how much I love Chris McCain.
He's a boy.
Yeah, he's my boy. I watched the game against San Diego, and I looked at Deion Jordan in that speech package role, and I watched him drop back. That 15 pounds of muscle, he's not athletic. He's athletic, but he's not as fluid as he once was. And I don't see him being that drop back in coverage linebacker anymore. And in fact, I probably don't see him as a linebacker anymore. Yeah, I was high on that linebacker train, but he's not as fluid as he used to be.
So does that mean one of those defensive ends that, may be free agents at the end of the week could walk because Deion Jordan's now becoming a defensive end?
In my mind, there's no way that Jared Odrick doesn't walk. Okay. I mean, here's the reality of it. Jared Odrick is going to get $30 million on the open market from some other team, and probably the team that Casey Rogers, the defensive coordinator, the Dolphins D-line coach, is going to be the defensive coordinator of next year. So say goodbye to Jared Odrick. He's gone. You're not going to pay him what he's worth. So come to terms with it, Dolphin fans. Now, I know I said that about Paul Soliai, and I know I said that in Randy Starks wasn't returning, but this time I mean it.
Right.
The market for players like Jared Odrick in terms of his versatility, 3-4-4-3, pass rushing pressure, he doesn't have huge numbers, but if you watch the game, the impact is high, and he's gone.
We've gone pretty over time, but we've got a lot of really good questions during the show, so I want to just ask one rapid-fire question that I think is pretty good. Aaron Roberts asks, you're talking about Lamar Miller needing to get more touches. Who should be getting less touches on offense? Who should those touches be taken away from?
Tough question. I would love to see Mike Wallace not be used as a possession receiver. Let him do what he does. as Mike says. I'm speaking Mike Wallace. Let the man do what he does. And I would love to see Jarvis Landry get more opportunities. I would actually love to see Rashard Matthews play more, which might mean less Brandon Gibson and less Brian Hartline.
We haven't seen a lot of Brandon Gibson anyway.
The receivers play their role.
Right.
And everybody gets about 18 or more snaps per game. They keep the Dolphins. What you got to realize is the Dolphins rotate their players in and out of the games to keep them fresh in the fourth quarter, and it's an approach that Joe Philbin has really expanded on, and I actually like it.
Except for when it comes to Lamar Miller, right?
You know what? The problem with Lamar Miller is you fear his durability, and look at what we're dealing with here.
All right, it's prediction time. Omar, how do you see this all going down? It's a tough road game against a tough defense and a good quarterback. What do you think?
You know what? I've probably done the most extensive look at film of the Lions than I've done everybody else. From this standpoint, I didn't know what makes them very good, and after looking at all that film, I still don't know what makes them very good. They can't run the ball. Their quarterback is a gambler. He's playing without his great weapons. His weapons are gimpy. All they've really got is a great defensive line. Their kicking game is their return game is I really think that the Dolphins go into Detroit in a dome stadium and pull out a 24, I'm going to be aggressive and say 17 victory. I think that this is a time that the Dolphins are going to flex their muscle and show the nation the type of team that they are.
I disagree. I think we've been talking about Ryan Tannehill and how great he's been for the last 5 games.
You think he comes back down to earth?
He's had 3 great games, and in between those 3 great games, he's had 2 games. Put 2 of these great games together, especially one on the road, especially one against a top 5 defense, and then you've got me believing that you can be consistent.
So you're saying that the Dolphins will lose. Give me a score.
I've got 21-17.
21-17, loss for the Dolphins. I'm predicting a win for the Dolphins. And I'm saying that this talent of this Dolphins team is finally going to show up in game number 9. And you're saying that Ryan Tannehill's inconsistencies are going to resurface again. Is that what we're saying?
Exactly what we're saying. And I think maybe even a bigger issue, Lamar Miller not 100%, and they can't run the ball like they've been able to run in recent games.
Daniel Thomas has shown you something. When he came back hungry, I know his numbers are a little bit down.
Something? What exactly was it that he showed us?
Hey, he showed you that he was hungry for a minute.
Hungry
for a minute.
He was hungry. Actually, he does look slimmed down, so he might be hungry. All right, that's it for X's and Omar. We're here live every Wednesday at 12:15, breaking down your Dolphins. You can find the replay of the show on sunsentinel.com. Thank you so much for joining us.